Live, where we host a space every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Eastern, to talk about developments in the world of UBI and meet with the people who are making them happen. I'm Scott Santons. I've been researching, writing, and advocating for the concept of UBI for the last 10 years. For those new to the concept, UBI stands for Unconditional or Universal Basic Income. It's the idea that every individual in a society can and should be guaranteed a periodic cash payment without means test or work requirement in order to make their way in the world upon a firm foundation. I recently started the Income to Support All Foundation, or ITSA Foundation, which provides support to projects that aim to make UBI a reality through research, storytelling, and implementation. You can learn more at itsafoundation.org. I'm joined by my co-hosts today, as always, Conrad Shaw and Josh Worth, co-founders of Comingle. They're here as UBI Guy and Comingler 1. Comingle is one of the first projects we're promoting at the ITSA Foundation. Josh, do you want to tell people what Comingle is all about?
Yeah, Comingle is a money-sharing app that we're developing that allows people to pool the percentage of their income into a community fund that gets divided up evenly and distributed as a weekly basic income. And the result is that members give money when they have it and get money when they need it, so that no member ever goes a week without income. And you can learn all about it at comingle.us.
Thanks, Josh. Conrad, do you want to add anything?
I think maybe I'll wait till there's more people in the room to add some of the fun updates I wanted to mention today. Big doings going on with our projects, but I'll say for now, I added a tweet in the replies of other ways to get involved, things to follow, newsletters to get on, or the crowdfund. But yeah, for now, yeah, I'll encourage everyone again to retweet and get more people into this room, and let's just jump to the conversation.
Great. So usually what we would do, if we have a special guest, then we would go over a little bit of news first and then go to the guest, and then the first hour would be just for us and the guest, and then the second hour would be for people to raise their hand and join the conversation, specifically with focus on questions and stuff to the guest. We don't have a special guest today, so we welcome anyone to raise their hand to become a speaker as we go about our discussion, which will seed with some news. So as far as where to start today, I guess I'll just start with the some more recent results. It's funny, there's like so many results coming from various pilots, both like final results and preliminary results from the various reports, that it's almost kind of like hard to keep track of, and it's confusing. Like even I think part of the reason, even when I'm sharing stuff, someone might think that was something that was already shared. It'd be like, oh, I already like read about that pilot, even though it's like a different pilot. So there's just like a lot going on,
and they all show the same thing. It's like,
right? Yeah, that could be confusing
kind of get used
too.
to it. It's like, oh, people didn't work less, or oh, people were happier and there was less domestic violence or whatever. It's all the same results over and over and over again, times like 100 of these pilots, and it's like, okay, I'm convinced.
Well, you are, but maybe not everyone.
I speak for everyone, Josh.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the general consensus is that surprisingly, more money helps people helps people become less poor.
Yeah, for the most part, there's not a whole lot of surprising stuff to us who are deep in this, and I think even for on a common sense level. But there's actually still some of the occasional surprising little tidbit, or not necessarily surprising as in, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened, but just like very welcome to see and very encouraging. So as an example, there's in this something, but I'll just again, the thing that was most recent was the Minneapolis pilot. And so this was 200 people getting $500 a month for 2 years. And what kind of sets this pilot apart too is that it was actually analyzed by the Minneapolis Federal Reserve. So kind of like an atypical study in that, usually it's some like university or something looking at this that's teamed up with the pilot people. And this time it's the Minneapolis Federal Reserve. So pretty cool on that one. There's just a little bit more weight to it. So just some stuff from the report, some highlights. Food security, financial security, well-being, and psychological wellness all improved for recipients relative to the comparison group of non-recipients as of the 12-month mark. Additionally, we find some evidence of a positive impact on housing stability. For the remaining index, labor supply, we cannot detect a significant impact of guaranteed basic income. So, of course, this is usual finding, no significant impact on work one way or another. Here's another part. The story emerging from our Minneapolis study matches the few available findings from other basic income pilots quite closely. The most well-known basic income pilot and one of the few others with public results is from Stockton, California. The analysis of that program found improvements in psychological well-being nearly identical to our findings and no reductions in employment. In a pilot that operated from November 2020 through August 2021, serving a low-income immigrant community in Chelsea, Massachusetts, also showed that it lowered financial distress, but not labor supply. The immediate improvements in food security in that study, however, did not last like ours did. That was interesting. And I liked how they just included some of the, other pilots and showing that there are, similar findings being seen. And they'll continue to collect and analyze data the end of the payments later this year. So it's not fully done yet. It's a 2-year pilot, and that was for the first year. And then they don't expect like the final analysis to be done for another 2 years. So that's just interesting to see a Minneapolis Reserve study. And so that's like the newest of the pilot reports. But then there's been in the news, some of the results from the not quite as new but newer ones too. That and those were mostly the Austin findings found its way into multiple articles, which was encouraging. And we actually talked about that one last week, but I can throw a link to the article about it still, and the replies here. And that was, they gave 135 people $1,000 a month for a year. And the headline of the Vice article is, Austin gave poor families a basic income. It changed their lives. They mostly spent out of rent, substantially improved their situations. Again, very, very common stuff. 9% are reported working less, and 7% reported working more. So again, kind of a neutral impact there.
Did they have anything on like the type of work? Because I know what I found is in our bootstraps pilot is people worked about the same, but a lot of people moved into better work because they took the time to wait for the right job. And from the 2.5-year difference, they were in a much better they were on a career path rather than scraping by with a bullshit job, but they were working the same.
Yeah, we actually discussed the details. It was the ones we discussed last week. I'd have to bring them up again and see what the actual shifts were. But yeah, I think for the most part it was, working more was, along those lines. Also, self-employment is a usual thing too, starting at something.
I guess you could measure it in 2 ways as well. You could measure just like self-reported, do you feel good about your work and are you happy with your job? And then also, are people earning more? Which is one of the things I'm really interested in finding over time with Comingle, because it'll actually track income. Do you find like a rising tide sort of effect when more people are given more space to dig out from under all like the burdens of being poor and find better work? Does the average income of the group or the average person go up because they're finding better jobs, and then sort of create a virtuous cycle?
Yeah, I think that's what we'll find. We'll find people shifting from and there's a lot of people with part-time jobs who would prefer to have a full-time job, just as there's people with full-time jobs who would rather have a part-time job, or people who are working overtime who would rather just have a full-time job. There's just a lot of different impacts that kind of neutralize each other out for the most part, but people end up being, happier in the positions that they're in, and even being able to pursue unpaid work, or going back to school, or doing some kind of business or project. That I think it's just better to have people finding the stuff that they're a better fit for, and of course being able to both afford to find like that better job, and also be able to afford to refuse a poor job that underpays them or mistreats them.
Right. We have a few more people who have trickled in. I just want to put out the reminder that we're going straight to opening it up for people to jump in. So either leave a comment in the comments or raise your hand and come up and ask a question or talk about this stuff.
Yeah, I don't. So the next thing, I don't know if this will work because we've never done this before, but I thought it might be fun to play like just a short news video about a news story of an automated AI restaurant, opening in California, called Cali Express by Flippy. And it's only like it's a 2-minute segment. So I don't know if like the audio will come through or not, but
give it a shot.
We'll give it a try. We'll
see if
tell
it
you.
works. All right.
Well, the robots have arrived, at least in Pasadena, California.
Can you hear that okay?
Yeah, turn it up.
First ever fully autonomous AI-powered
Okay.
restaurant has opened, complete with burger flipping bots. We sent CBS's Joy Benedict on a taste test.
Flippy the chef makes Spud spectacular. This automated grill gives the meat its sizzle, as this restaurant goes robotic.
For this burger, it would take about 120 seconds.
Cali Express by Flippy is the world's first AI-powered eatery. There's new technology outside the kitchen, too. A cheeseburger. Order kiosks use facial recognition to remember you, your favorite food, and how you like to pay. Then watch the robots work. No humans required.
We can't get enough people to come out to work on fryers and grills. They're dangerous jobs. And this automation helps solve a lot of those issues.
62% of restaurants report being understaffed. Industry experts say most of those unfilled jobs could be done by robots. And in California, where the minimum wage for most fast food workers will soon be $20 an hour, fewer workers equals cost savings. Dan Ives is with Wedbush Securities, a wealth management firm.
Once the minimum wage went to 20, that's the bell going off. More and more focus on spending on AI. Because, look, that's inflationary. That's the problem. You can't necessarily pass all that to the consumer.
Flippy can cook 250 pounds of French fries an hour. The burger bot, 100 patties.
These restaurants are very, very busy at peak times, and every second that gets added to somebody waiting in drive-thru is a lost revenue opportunity for that restaurant.
Is it costing people their jobs?
That's not what we've seen, and it's really here to help people.
Humans at Cali Express will put the finishing touches on orders. For customers, the price of the meals are competitive. As for taste, is it going to affect the quality and the taste?
I would say yes, in a good way, because now each burger is being cooked precisely the same way every time.
Time will tell whether AI takes over kitchens everywhere. That will be up to the public to chew on.
Oh, fun.
Joy Benedict, CBS News, Pasadena, California.
To chew on.
So,
Chew on that.
I just thought that in particular, it was really funny. The guy who said that, they're not seeing any job losses.
Yeah, like,
And
how
it's
would
like,
they see
the
that?
entire.
I don't even think those were the words he said. He's like, that is not something I've experienced, or it was an awkward answer.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
want to
like
go there
that
now. I
just
didn't.
in
It's
general.
actually
It's funny.
it's not far from me. I'm gonna go visit.
Yeah,
I'll
you
give you
totally
the
should. You
full
should check it
report.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
What
that's kind of
store was it?
exciting. Called Cali Express. It's just like it looks like a
Yeah.
burger joint. Really, it's nothing too special.
Is there just like one human employee, standing around with a fire extinguisher or something, and a
Yeah,
socket wrench, like trying to make sure?
Yeah, that's pretty wild. It's weird that the kind of the quintessential definition of like the unskilled job that you don't want, flipping burgers. Like we can't even say that. Like, it used to be like you'd come out of college and what job are you going to get? Oh, you're going to go flip burgers. You're going to be like, you want fries with that. Like that was the cliche response when asked what you're going to do with that, English major or whatever. But now that's not even available. Yeah. Or I mean, it
Well, what's
is, but
funny too is
it's going away.
yeah, they would say like, first of all, it's like go get a job and, just go flip burgers. Anybody can do that. And then, when they're like, well, I can't live on the amount of money that I'm getting from this. And they're like, well, get a better job.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing flipping burgers for?
Right. Yeah.
And it's like the same time too, if everybody said that I'm not going to work that job, then, I mean, who's going to do it? Let's even assume that we don't have the technology to do it, then who's going to do that job? So somebody has to, and if the logic is that job, that saying yes to that job should mean someone lives in poverty, then you're saying that like you want someone to really do that job, but at the same time they deserve to live in poverty. It doesn't make any sense.
The only way that works out is essentially a desperation slavery system. It's the only way it can happen, where it's like the least desirable job should pay more than a more desirable job in a sane system.
I mean, I guess it's kind of good in that like the least desirable jobs are becoming more desirable. Like the bar at which we will look at a job as being desirable is being raised, right? Like the lowest skilled labor is something that maybe you might actually want to do. I mean,
yeah,
that would be the hope, I guess.
I thought it'd be fun to listen to that segment too. So, aside, just kind of bring in that conversation a little bit and just talk about it as far as like, I think it's a good thing. And you said that, Josh, that you want to go check it out, and love to hear about that visit. So please do.
I'll tell you.
But like, yeah, I want to too. Like, I want automation of fast food, to happen. Like, as they did mention in the segment that they can pretty much guarantee that each product that they make is very similar, much more similar than now, where they're going to have that variety. If you have someone who's really like cares about the quality, then you can get like a really nice burger, let's say, and then someone else like doesn't give a shit because they hate their job, they don't want to be there, then you can get like a shitty burger. So like the robot doesn't care. It's just programmed to do this, and it'll make the same quality burger each and every time, and hopefully cheaper. Like that's what I would love to see, like a company like McDonald's just really focus on automating as much as they possibly can, and then the result is like a $2 Big Mac or something. And so if you want like a really tasty, like the tastiest burgers, then go out to like your favorite tasty burger place and spend like $20 or something on like some of this high quality burger with your great service and everything. But if you just want a good burger or an okay burger, and you're happy to spend just $2, then great, that should be an option. And no one should be working poverty wages to make that happen.
Yeah, I mean, the fast food is a pretty good like focal point for like a lot of questions, just because like it's kind of like the definition of unskilled, entry level labor. But it's also like provides like in areas that don't have like super high end restaurants. A lot of times McDonald's is like the one option you've got there for being able to like get food on the table without having to, spend the time that you need to cook it. And it's like it sustains people, that fast food option is pretty key to a lot of people. And like the idea that it's going to become less expensive, like does the automation of it making it less expensive like offset the fact that a bunch of people also won't be able to get the job working there, right? Like maybe you won't have a job to that will pay you enough, but maybe you don't need to be making as much in order to buy that cheap burger now. There's a lot of like questions that come into just that small little like microcosm of the economy.
It's also fun just thinking, or interesting just thinking, like these jobs aren't getting roboticized now. They were always robotic jobs that we were training humans to behave like robots. And
we had robots.
Human beings with, intelligence and creativity that we say, squash all that for 8 hours a day and just move this bucket from that to that like 4,000 times during the day. And that's where you'll derive your greater purpose in life. It's like, no.
I said 2 pickle slices per patty,
Yeah.
1 sprinkle, 2 shakes of this, 1 slice, do this.
Yeah.
You have to do it the same every time. It's very robotic.
You get fired for not being a good enough robot.
The rule of thumb with the fries was fluff, don't stuff. Like you want to have a big thing of fries without actually using a lot of fries.
Did you have one of those jobs, Josh? I never did.
I never did, but friends of mine did, and I got to hear all the behind the scenes stuff. And everybody was miserable, and it was like you're treated like garbage, and people would just spit in the food just for revenge against the rude customers. So like there's horror stories aplenty. Like
that's a funny little catchphrase. I would have not guessed it was a fast food thing. If someone just told me the catchphrase, I'd be like, what industry says fluff don't stuff?
Right. Yeah.
That's definitely something that a robot is probably not going to do. But then again, like if you piss off a robotic programmer, then maybe they'll make sure that there's like a little bit of spit in every burger.
Right. Yeah, automating the entire experience. Yeah.
Right.
But it's always, when you see like the ways that McDonald's and places like that are using to entice people to get a job there, it's always rings so hollow. It's like, join our community of like-minded associates. It's like, you're not fooling anybody. You're working at McDonald's. But it's like the least glamorous possible job. But, and I think what makes it so unglamorous is that you're just basically a robot. And you could be anybody, and you can be paid very little because there's somebody else waiting in line that also needs a job right behind you. And
what's funny too is like I enjoy myself some McDonald's and Burger King, and I also like to compare when I go to like other countries, and because I just think like there's definitely a quality difference there too. So I think the best that I ever had, and I can't remember if this was a Whopper or a Big Mac. I think it was a Whopper. Like the best of that fast food was in Switzerland, and it was a little bit more expensive, not like all that much more expensive. It was just a little bit, but also like I knew that the person who made it, like they made I don't know what the conversion is. I think it was something like $25 an hour, to make that. And I swear I could taste that. Like there's there's like a big difference between someone you're paying a sub poverty wage to,
Yeah.
and someone who like actually, I don't know, has the incentive to care.
Economic security.
Yeah, I love the taste of a healthy economic system. Yeah. No,
Right.
I mean, you really can't, like, there's something about McDonald's, like, you can kind of taste the desperation there.
Right.
Like you open up the burger, it's just kind of like, nobody cared about this. It's just like such a lack of care. You're like, when you eat it, you're like, I'm eating this because I just don't care what I'm eating right now. But there's something sort of fun and real American about that too at the same time.
Right. Yeah, like it's like the common joke is that the picture never looks like what you actually
Right.
get. But I feel that's actually more of an American thing. Where if you want the food to look like the picture, then you got to go overseas,
Right.
where they have like a high wage.
Yeah,
They'll
you
actually
just know
take the
it.
time to place the lettuce nicely on top
Like
of the patty.
you're looked at like a moron if you mention that it doesn't look anything like the picture. It's like, well, of course, everyone knows they're full of shit. You just take that for example, or you take it for granted. This is reminding me. There's a really good line in a song a buddy of mine wrote that I always think of as sort of a UBI song, and particularly this line, even though it's not. He didn't mean it as that, but the verse is my hourglass is broken, crushed up in some machine. I mourn my dying minutes, for they don't belong to me. I asked the boss man, please, dear sir, would you give a bit more pay? He said, then the line behind you is 9 miles long, boy, you ain't worth much today.
Right. Yeah. Very good. Yeah. There's also, like, around here, there's In-N-Out Burger, which is like this highly regarded burger that everybody loves, and one of the things that makes going in there kind of nice is that you do know that they treat their employees pretty well. Like, they kind of take pride in that they're the highest paying fast food place, and they, according to just their reputation, they kind of take care of the employees pretty well and give them benefits and everything. So, and you go in there and it is a much cheerier atmosphere, and I don't know, there's something about, like, you're still just having a burger, but it tastes a little better. And like, there's kind of like this bigger mystique around In-N-Out burgers that I think you could probably trace back to the fact that they pay their employees well. I might be totally wrong, and that just might be their reputation too.
Well, it certainly doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
Like I don't think there's a restaurant out there where the employees are very well paid and they're like, screw all of you. Like, it's all, like, just like you go to Costco, and I feel like the shopping experience there is better than going to a Walmart or a dollar store or something. And part of that is just the difference in the way they treat their employees.
Dollar stores. John Oliver did something on it near the end of last
yeah,
season,
that
and it was
crazy.
just, I mean, that is a shitty life and work experience working at a dollar store.
I love how they had they included the volunteers. Like, it's so bad that the shoppers will offer to help because there's only one employee working this one store doing both like the stocking and the cashiering and just all of it, the back end stuff. And so there's just like stuff piles up, and there's just a terrible experience. And the shopper is like, hey, what can I do?
It's like all this milk is out, it's gonna go bad, someone's got to put it in the fridge. And then meanwhile the employee, there was that one that got trapped in the storeroom just by the piles and piles of stuff that never got on the shelves, and he's like, now I might die here, like someone has to come get me out of here. It's not actually that funny, but
yeah, that segment is worth watching just how bad it is. Yeah, it's gallows humor to laugh at it, just to how bad it's gotten.
We have
But
a bunch
uh,
more
we,
people here, and I think pretty soon it'd be fun to tell our news. Sounds like you have something else to say, Josh, but go.
well, not really. It's just you know, I think like Walmart's another good example because like places like dollar stores and like Dollar General that are kind of like these like last resort shopping centers. Um, those are they kind of have an excuse for being basically depressing inside because like as a business they're probably who knows what kind of money they're making. But you look at Walmart, which is like an extremely successful business. um, you can still smell the desperation there. You can still like sense that the employees are not being treated well, even though the prices are very low. There's still, I don't know. It's just something you can keep following all the way to the top. You can just follow like the amount of money that's being paid it trickles right down into the customer experience.
Josh, just thinking, did you ever go to that automated place? I don't think it exists anymore, and maybe you know more information about it, like what happened to it. But there was like the quinoa bowl place there in San Francisco, and like you walk in, and then there was like the touchscreen ordering,
Uh-huh.
and then like the way that you pick it up is it had like a wall where they had like the doors with like an LCD kind of thing on each one.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then there was like the screen that had your number and then like the like slot number or whatever. So then when you would see that you were coming up, and then you would go to that and then open it up, and then your food would be inside.
Yeah.
Kind of like a
And see
big
that, and I
vending
don't remember the
machine.
name of that.
Uh-huh. I remember hearing about that. I never went to it. But yeah, there's the automated experience does not necessarily translate to a feeling of cheapness. Like when you're
Yeah, that wasn't cheap. It was kind of like the organic kind of
right.
healthy route where you could spend like this was I think like 2017
Mm-hmm.
maybe 2016 2017, and I think it was like $8 or $9 for a quinoa bowl.
Okay.
So it's not like it wasn't like cheap and it wasn't like expensive. But I just thought it was an interesting experience. That was actually the first time I'd ever used. I think it was the first time I'd ever used a touchscreen interface. And of course, there's a lot more places now. But it was a new thing then.
Yeah, I'm curious if this the burger place will kind of have a more higher end feeling. Like there's something about like the atmosphere of the people working that gives you a sense of quality. And so I'm wondering if a robot working will, if something will be lost there.
I'm wondering too how all the new AI large language stuff is going to change things in general. Like I think about that in terms of customer service in general. But right now, like when McDonald's all over the place started having those touch screens, you go out there and it's just this annoying and sort of Byzantine process to order some fries or say I want ketchup on it or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just it didn't save the customer any time and it made the experience more annoying. But it's not at that point where it's like everyone has an easier time from it. But it seems like
I actually really like that. I just prefer that. I just prefer the process of as long as there's a bunch of those, because if there's only two, then I really don't like feeling rushed and people are coming behind me. I'm like, hey, I want to take my time figuring out what I want, But if there's plenty of displays there for people to order, then I think it's nice just to be able to go through and
it was just
like
clunkier before. I wanted it to have a more flow of like more conversational and be more intuitive than it was, at least.
Yeah, there's definitely good and bad versions of those touchscreen ordering systems. But
another thing I'd like to try
better.
Have you tried like the audio ordering yet? I know that some drive-thrus have that option, and I know that that's long been an annoying experience for me. It's you go through and it's like the garbled like
right.
can't hear a word that they're saying. and sometimes you have to pull up because like that was completely useless.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes, of course, you get the order wrong because the communication is so bad. So like I think that could be great as especially the newer AI models being able to understand what we're saying and being able to just understand
Yeah, it
what they're
does. It
saying
does
via like
remove a
a
lot of
real
that
human
kind of
speech.
pressure that somebody doesn't understand you, somebody can't hear you. It removes like the feeling that someone's waiting on you or getting impatient. So like, all those automated ordering systems, they do get rid of all of that baggage that comes with annoying human interaction with somebody that probably doesn't even want to be there in the first place.
Well, also just the ability to understand language is
Oh
huge.
yeah.
Outside of the restaurant industry, we were starting. It was like 6-7 years ago. We were working on Bootstraps, and we started having some interviews for our documentary, and needing to transcribe like 100 hours of video. And I started trying to do it. I'm like, I can't do this. It's going to take me like 2 months. And then you look at services, and it's just like, oh, we're going to commit, $10,000 to this. And I just remember thinking, no, shouldn't there be an AI that can do this right now? That's got to be something. And it was like one of the first. I just Googled it, and there was like one of the first betas, and it was clunky, but it cut the cost to like 20%. And then I still had to go through and fix everything a bit. But these days, that went from being an enormous cost for like a little independent film to almost nothing. Like it's almost free to just have your whole thing transcribed.
It pretty much is. Yeah. And by these days, you mean like today,
Like
compared to yesterday?
Yeah. Or you put a video up on YouTube, and you want to have, you want everything to be accessible and everything for everybody, and the process of making your closed captions is a long and difficult process, but now it basically kind of does it itself. You can even just choose a setting where it's like, do your best, and it's mostly there. Like a lot of people don't even take the time to do the correct closed captioning, but the auto generated one that's just free is pretty much what it needs to be already.
Yeah, but that was a kind of sought after job of like being a translator, being a closed caption writer, like that. People people would pay and receive good money for that.
And
that was also there was an experience I had at the Moscow airport that I used one of those ordering displays. I think it was at the Burger King there in Russia, and what I loved about it, because that was like the first time where I'd used the display in a place where English wasn't available. So like it would have been kind of challenging to do the ordering in person.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like someone who works at a Burger King is going to know 20 languages, but the ordering kiosk did. And so I was just able to to order in a place that usually would have been very difficult in a way that's very easy. So that's something that's forgotten is just we assume everyone knows English, but it's not like everybody knows English, and that's just it really increases the ability for sales.
Yeah,
it's just wildly like as kids, this is like in sci-fi, like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. There's I don't know if it's Babelfish or Babelfish, but basically it just so you can understand anyone. Like what's going to happen to translators? They're going to lose their jobs, but also you'll be able to travel the world and talk to anybody by having a little app or an earpiece or whatever. You'll be able to communicate. That's enormous, in human social development, like across cultures, being able to just quickly get something across to someone you're seeing for the first time in a foreign land, whatever.
Yeah, what's out there, what's available just on your phone is pretty good. Like it's not quite like instantaneous, and there's this weird like social interaction that happens where you're like showing somebody your phone and they're replying and then it's but like it does work. Like you don't have to know the language to communicate with somebody. It's pretty.
Did you see the release video or the announcement video of the new was it like the A24, that's Samsung Galaxy, A24, A25, whatever the newest phone is that has AI actually built into the phone. So, you don't have to have internet access in order to do this translation.
Oh, wow.
And of course, the translation is super fast because it's right there on the phone.
Mm.
And so there's like some really cool things where it basically is like the existence of the universal translator, where you can speak into this and you're with facing somebody, and then it speaks. You can even speak in your voice in their language, and then goes backwards the other way too. And also it does that with texting automatically too, which just like it's just this instant universal translation device, just so cool. I was excited to use like the LLMs when I was in Korea recently to try that out. And when I tried it, I actually did experience that issue of I didn't have internet access, and so it didn't work because I didn't have it on my phone. But I was really looking forward to using that out in the wild, even if it did have a little bit of a delay. But yeah, it's like that basically does technology to do that kind of translation in such a way was less than a year old, and now it's already to the point where it's basically like a Star Trek Universal Translator.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I'm seeing a couple requests to speak, but I don't see them in here. Are they? Is that?
One just came on and went away.
Yeah, just popping up and pop down.
Yeah, but there's a lot going on. And just kind of going back to the restaurant experience thing, there is like a good, like, those sushi restaurants where the sushi like goes around on a conveyor belt.
Yeah, the conveyor belt ones.
Yeah, there's something that's fun about that too. Like you're not really missing it's not feeling like dehumanized and cheap either. And the same place has like a little robot that will come around and bring you your drink. And I think there's something about just the sheer novelty and fun of it that is like kind of erases that feeling that you've stolen somebody's job. Right? And there's also like humans walking around too. It's not like it's completely automated, and they're sort of like everybody's kind of smiling and laughing. So I think that's how it's happening, is this kind of delight that we're getting is offsetting the kind of, the possible horrible ramifications that it might all end up having.
It really helps to have like bright eyes and a smile painted on your robot, and like a cheerful voice. Like as soon as they started getting past the robotic voice, it's like and started making it feel like a person talking to you. It was like, oh, okay, people are going to accept this pretty quick.
Yeah. Like it's just going to charm its way into our lives and steal our job. It's not going to be like these horrible, like, skeletal looking robots coming with guns. No, it's going to be these cute little smiling things with funny voices.
I'd have to find it, but I think there was some study that found that like just putting eyes on a robot like made a difference for like interactions with it. So cuteness of the eyes. Same thing with like Baby Yoda. Like Baby Yoda became such a massive hit because it's just like the ratio and largeness of his eyes, where his body is just like it hits us at like a physiological level of like that is baby, protect it kind of thing.
Yeah, all that stuff's pretty interesting.
There's I think like Disney Imagineering has been doing some really interesting robotic stuff recently, and they have this one that looks to me like BD1 from the Jedi Survivor games, and it has like I don't know how to describe it.
Is that the little ball robot guy from the?
That's BB-8.
That's BB-8.
I don't know BB-1. Yeah. Let's see what he looks like.
It's BD.
BD. Okay.
I think it's one. It's a little guy. He's got 2 legs. He's almost like a
Oh,
miniature
yes.
ATST, I guess, in a way. And it looks like he's something out of like a Pixar movie. Like super, super cute. I think seems like that's a good direction for
Yeah,
at
it
least
doesn't. There's nothing. It's not trying to be
family
human
robot.
or anything. Yeah.
Right. It's a little bit iffier, like the Optimus style robots, where it does look like not Terminator, but like what was the movie with Will Smith?
iRobot.
iRobot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like the robots from iRobot, right? That's the kind of vibe.
Yeah, I've been fascinated by this whole thing of like how you make things appealing for a long time, and like, yeah, just there's like a whole debate over whether you try to make the R2D2 or the C3PO. Like, are you
Right.
trying to create something that is imitating the human, or something that is just its own personality that's coming through based on these tiny cues we have about how to read things like, eye placement, or like pitch of the voice and size of eyes, like all that stuff, like all comes into play. So it just
And
becomes
it's
this whole really interesting design question of like, are we trying to recreate the human form, or are we just trying to make a robot that we like?
And it's not just a thing that people are doing to manipulate me. It's like I anthropomorphize everything. Like I can't tell you how many things in my house have names. Like our Malcolm the car,
Right.
and like
Yes.
or the bikes are pets, and I don't know. It just makes me feel better about things to like tell a human story. I once anthropomorphized my own finger when I was at the climbing gym, and it brought a tear to my eye. The story I was telling about this earnest little finger just trying real hard to hold on to the wall, and he's got his teeth, and he's like, "Arr." And it's the most absurd, idiotic thing, but it also made me feel better about life,
Yeah, there's certainly some functionality in these to be designed that way, to like really take advantage of that, for sure. Michael, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, I
Would you like
just wanted to come in and give you some support and some backup. There've been a couple of rooms, but the timing has been off, and it's like I always seem to miss your rooms. So, but I think that I'm glad I finally was able to connect with you.
Great, we're glad to have
Yeah,
you.
thanks for
We
coming
shoot
in.
for every Wednesday, 12 Eastern, and that's not great for everybody, but that's just kind of the time slot we have. Do you have anything else, Michael, you wanted to say, or you're just expressing?
Well, I think that if you have questions, I mean, I'm certainly willing to answer them. I'm basically kind of beginning the whole cycle again for the Senate. So the thing that's becoming abundantly clear to me now that we're on the other side, clearly on the other side of the pandemic, is that we really do need to be having a serious discussion about unconditional, universal, basic income. It's essential, I think, for where we're going to be going as a nation.
I have a couple of questions. So where are you running? And in terms of like, what's the political calculus? All we can ever do is speculate. For a lot of people, it's like, okay, I think this person supports UBI, but they don't feel like they have the ability to come out and say it because politically it'll hurt their chances. Or this person is coming out and saying whatever they want because they know they're not going to win, but they want to get it in the conversation. I guess my main question is like, I see it from more of a grassroots angle. Is it's our job to tend the soil so that it's rich and fertile for politicians to kind of take those platforms. It's not their job to lead and make the idea happen. It's their job to listen. So what's your experience where you are in terms of what it's like to have something like UBI on your platform? Like how politically helpful or hurtful is it?
Well, I think that if you have questions, I mean, I'm certainly willing to answer them. I'm basically kind of beginning the whole cycle again for the Senate. So the thing that's becoming abundantly clear to me now that we're on the other side, clearly on the other side of the pandemic, is that we really do need to be having a serious discussion about unconditional, universal, basic income. It's essential, I think, for where we're going to be going as a nation. Well, I mean, it's not a secret, but my platform is in many ways a flashcard version of what Marianne was doing in 2020. And it's now, I mean, her platform now is so verbose, but I had met her in the mid 80s, 1980s, during the AIDS HIV crisis. And Louise Hay had introduced us. And so there was an organic connection there. And then when she decided to run, I was like, "Oh my God, what is she doing? How can she?" My concern was for her well-being. And then at a certain point, I was like, "Wait a second, maybe I need to just step up, man up, and step into this." So a lot of these platform pieces have come through just really going through what she's been doing and going, well, that's a good idea. And then that's a good idea. And then you came into the mix. It's really interesting because you followed me and I've been really paying attention. So even the flashcard that I'm using now is I would say really a combination of you, Scott, and Marianne, in the sense that I'm using unconditional universal basic income. And I think the unconditional thing, I think the first time I heard it was actually from you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something that I've been pushing from the beginning. And I alternate depending on the messaging, what I'm trying to emphasize. But I think in general, the unconditionality is the strongest aspect. And you could look at it as being, making it universal too. Kind of stretches what we mean by conditions, which usually just means about like work requirements. But like this is something that if you interview pilot participants and like ask them about what they thought about having it, how they would describe it, what was like so different about it, they would say that it was the unconditionality that was so different. That's where the empowerment comes from. That's where the trust comes from. So it's just so important to emphasize. The very first essay I ever wrote about basic income was, the title of it was about unconditional basic income. And I really just try to stress the importance of that. And it's interesting that more recently, with the kind of the rise of the conspiracy theory notion of basic income, it's important to counter that. So if you're just talking about universal basic income, then someone will say, "Oh, well, they'll just use universal basic income and it'll have conditions, and they'll control you, blah 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 blah," because the understanding of the definition of basic income isn't well known enough, and by using universal basic income instead of basic income, it can kind of take away the unconditional aspect, even though that's part of it. So yeah, just stressing it makes sure that people know that there's no condition.
And they sometimes, to me, they're like, by logical extrapolation, they're sort of synonymous. If it's truly unconditional or truly universal, they're both, but to different people, they mean different things. Like unconditional can mean unconditional on how you can spend it, or unconditional on how you need to use it, or but if something is universal, how could it be conditional, right? So to me, universal is the term I like more, but a lot of times I'll find myself just saying both universal or unconditional basic income, so that it like doubly emphasizes whatever they mean to you. It's like it's all of it. It's like everyone is eligible and gets it, and everyone can do whatever the hell they want with it. And so the whole argument of like, yeah, they're just going to take it away if you don't step in line. And it's like, that's not a basic income. You're arguing with conditional welfare.
Yeah.
So Michael, what do you finding it? Have you been like sort of out in the public yet, pushing UBI, and like what's the response been? Looks like you're in Kansas.
Well, okay, so I started running in 2019, and so I think, I want to say, was it the People's Party, Scott? Was it the People's Party movement? Was that where?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I think that's where you noticed I was running. And at that time, I was doing my first, I believe, I could be wrong, my first bid for United States Senate as a Democrat. So I had previously run as a Republican in the big first for the United States House of Representatives. And then, of course, here in Kansas, because it's red or blue, then I pissed everybody off by going back to my Democratic roots and running for Senate. And without the Kansas Democratic Party blessing me. So, and I think that campaign was where the whole idea around including UBI in my campaign had its first baby step. And then, of course, I think when Marianne really elevated the conversation with Andrew Yang, because, I mean, he was doing well, but when Marianne lifted him up, I mean, it really kind of made him in terms of progressive circles. And so at that point, I kind of became involved in supporting different candidates, Andrew, Marianne, Nina Turner, this kind of thing, doing campaign videos and that kind of thing. But now I'm beginning to really shift to concepts, to platform pieces. The centerpiece of what I'm doing is the proverbial Department of Peace. That's the centerpiece, both domestically and internationally. And then in terms of economic issues, I would say that UBI is probably the centerpiece of that.
Mm-hmm. And then how do you like to talk about it? You said that you'll refer to it as unconditional universal basic income, but how do you push its importance? Like Andrew Yang ran on really the automation angle, and this being like a dividend, like a tech dividend, and he would constantly talk about how Alaska has the Alaska dividend because of oil. What's the new oil technology? We should have a tech dividend. There's a freedom dividend, and how pay for it. What you're going to do with that, and that he framed that as being something that would impact Amazon and these tech companies that aren't paying their fair share of taxes, and like that was the whole framing of Andrew Yang. And Marianne didn't. I don't think Marianne really had strong framing for basic income, even when she was running on it last time, or even since this time. It's more of like a
Scott,
poverty couldn't exist kind of thing.
Scott, I think if she's elected, that she would probably bring you in to the inner group on that, simply because you've been so visible and so consistent in terms, like, for example, I mean, it's just simple reality. We don't have a significant number of people who are out there doing the Chinese water torture that you're doing, right? Because you are on it. You are on it.
That's a good. I don't know. Chinese water torture immediately struck me as a good way to describe Scott's approach, well, okay. But also it doesn't have the best stigma, maybe.
Okay.
Drip,
all
drip,
right.
Drip,
all
drip.
right.
Yeah,
all right.
It's effective.
The way
mea culpa.
It's effective.
The way to get through, let's say, the way to wear down rock. Geological formations, drip over time.
Okay. I beg for forgiveness.
It reminds me of something that I told Josh about a while ago, and he brought back up. Like we had some good news after a very long time, and I had shared with him, like, as someone trying to fundraise for big projects, and just like the nightmare that is, and how many years we lost to it. There was a comic I saw once where it was there was this guy just beating his head against a cement wall, and some onlooker was like looking at him and saying, "You idiot, this is never going to get you anywhere." And then like a couple of frames later, a tiny little crack starts to form from where his forehead is hitting, and the onlooker's eyes get wide, and he's like, "Oh shit!" And it's like I shared that with Josh, because it's like this touches me so hard. Like this is exactly my entire. I've been beating my head against that wall for years, and every now and then a little crack just kind of goes, and you take a step forward, and eventually it's going to fall down. We got to get more people beating their heads.
The water torture is more on yourself than on others.
Okay, am I forgiven yet, or are you going to hold against me forever? But the point is that consistency and visibility work, and I think that you've been you've just simply been out there doing the heavy lifting on this, making sure that the topic is there, making sure that there is a conversation, there's a dialogue. And my suspicion, just to highlight and underscore, is I would think that anybody that was elected into federal office would at the very least, consult your work. But I suspect that they would bring you into the loop. I know that I would. And, if Marianne asked me, although I don't think she would, I would say, look, I mean, Scott obviously would need to be on that commission or that panel or that committee. But to get back to the question, because I never answered your question, I think that you have to first start by saying this is not a new idea. The idea of a basic income, or a universal basic income, or an unconditional universal basic income, it's not actually a new idea. It's an ancient idea. So we have forms of it. We have Social Security. We have the dividends you're speaking of. I know that there's a big controversy up in North Dakota where they have all of this money that they're stockpiling from the oil, but there's no dividend to my knowledge. So I think we have models, and we need to build upon that. I'm so sorry about that. Okay. So anyway, the reality is I think we need to, at least from my perspective, I think you need to begin the conversation with constituents by talking about the history. This is not actually new. It's yeah. Go ahead. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So talking about the history first, and then talking about the models that we have here in the United States and in other Western countries.
Yeah, like there was an article that I think we talked about this last week, or the week before, just article in Vox that was, the framing of it was basically like basic income is really not much of a change at all. It's a lot smaller shift than people think it is. So it's kind of like trying a strategy of this isn't that huge of a deal, guys. This is it's certainly different, but it's not all that different. It's not all that expensive. It's not going to have that much of an impact or whatever. And that's certainly one strategy, one way of going about it, to kind of demystify or make it seem less weird. Personally, I like the just hammering home that Alaska is the only place in the world really with a long-running universal basic income for over 40 years, and the fact that that's in America, that it's in a conservative state, I think that's valuable to be able to push that. That's at least over 40 years old there, fully universal, no work requirement, and clearly people are not losing their freedom or being controlled by government or whatever else people want to say about UBI now. And I think it's very helpful that we can do that. And hopefully part of the strategy going forward is other states are going to follow Alaska's lead. And in fact, are you proposing anything like that there in Kansas too? Any kind of like Kansas dividend or something like in Oregon with the dividend approach they're doing? Anything like that?
So one of the things that I did was I lobbied for expansion of Medicaid and Medicare here in Kansas. And that we're still struggling with that. Like we actually had the money and we could not get it through the lower and the upper house in Topeka.
Mm-hmm.
So that is kind of like, it's like the heel of the first baby step before getting to the toe. But I think that if we can have the conversation in Topeka, that would get us moving forward. I think the other thing is what's going to happen with the next gubernatorial race, because David Toland, I think it'd be very interesting to have this conversation with David Toland, who is likely to be the next Democratic governor.
Okay.
Something we were talking about a second ago we were talking about the drip, drip, drip and the banging head against the wall and then the sudden crack. Made me.
I thought I was forgiven.
You are forgiven. I immediately forgave you. I thought it was.
I thought we were friends again.
There was no need for forgiveness because I thought it was a great metaphor, but it was fun to talk about. Because I like to, poke Scott in the ribs sometimes. But this seems like a good segue into some of our recent news on the projects we're doing. This is It's Alive, after all, is the Income to Support All Foundation's weekly discussion session, and we got some good news recently in terms of what we're going to be doing this year and what we've sort of put together. But yeah, I remember it was Scott and me were talking about a year ago about, while we're both wary of, nonprofit foundations and how they generally operate, there was also this issue that in order to do the sort of work we need to do and to raise the type of funding we need to raise, it helps to have a foundation. And because foundations give money to foundations. So we decided to start a foundation. Just yesterday, we finally got our 501c3 status approved. So we're officially, it's a foundation. And we're hitting the ground sort of sprinting. We have some good opportunities coming in. We're ramping up the projects that we're supporting, both Comingle and Bootstraps. And more, I've been saying for a while, I've been working on these projects for so long. It was aspirational to be able to launch a campaign and the app and the docuseries by the end of 2024, but it's becoming more and more of a real possibility. And we're excited to be very busy actually doing the work, bringing on people and ramping up both development and post-production on all these projects. So it's an exciting time. It's alive,
Yeah, that's you heard it here first, everyone. If you're in the space listening, then we haven't tweeted about this yet. Only
just for you guys.
You're the first to know. So we're gonna start pushing it out there more. For those interested in actually donating, maybe you've been wondering why our donate button doesn't work, and that's what we were waiting for, the 501c3 status. So we'll get that going up in hopefully within the next week or so. You have to wait for the database updates and whatever before you can do this kind of stuff. But that's coming soon.
Yeah, we've been waiting very long to take a bunch of steps based on this. But I want to shout out to everyone here and who's been following and supporting, and everyone who helped with the crowdfund. We raised a good deal of money with the crowdfund, but there was always an ulterior motive, which is we need to show and demonstrate, come out of the shadows and show public interest before we're going to raise more money. and being able to go to potential funders and things like that, not only with like a foundation that's legit incredible, but also, 600 and 80 something now people who have sort of put their name down and said, I want to see this happen. I want to be part of this, is opening a lot of doors. And we have a lot of opportunities coming down the pike. And I'm really excited to start updating people more on what we're doing, other than just hoping to, be able to get started, because we're going now.
That reminds me too, I guess I need to get out a fresh ITSA newsletter about the news as well. So also a reminder, people, if you're not already subscribed to the newsletter, that link is in the first reply to this space too.
I did think it'd be fun to talk a little bit about why it's called ITSA, the several reasons we came up with it, and I'm incredibly proud of that branding. But I mean, it just keeps on giving. Like, it's alive. It's a newsletter. We'll have merch someday. It's a tote bag, whatever. But there was a really strong reason why. I mentioned before that I'm very wary of foundations in general. I've written articles like philanthropy is broken, and how do we change the system and all that. So knowing that and actually stepping forward to create a foundation, it was really important to do something different. And Scott was bringing up this this idea that the word foundation has something very compelling to it in terms with regards to universal basic income, because that's what universal basic income is, both at the individual and societal level. It's a foundation for people to structure their lives on, and it's also a foundation for societies to structure their systems on. So the metaphor, right? It's like the foundation of a house. You need that in before you construct the floors and the walls. So we wanted to play with this idea and take this, usually pretentious term, it's a foundation, and sort of turn it on its head. And the acronym kind of opened up the possibility too to very clearly put a tent pole in the ground for universal basic income at a time when a lot of people are pushing for or willing to compromise with short term for a more targeted, like the movement being often using the phrase guaranteed income is in a lot of ways to avoid having to use the word universal or unconditional. And we thought it very important that someone really draw a line in the sand. It's like, no, this is the North Star we're pushing for, is universality. So income to support all is a very clear message that that's the sort of projects that we're looking to support. And it's also our URL, itsafoundation.org. It's a Foundation is conveniently like the shortest sentence you can come up with to accurately describe basic income, and it's very easy to remember. So that is the origin of ITSA, which is now an official 501c3 nonprofit. Tell all your foundational and wealthy friends, because we still have some more budget to raise.
Yeah, congratulations on that, because it's pretty big. Just that you're just going through all those hoops to get the government to say yes.
Yeah, it's a process.
You're okay. Yeah, it's a process. Right?
It took a year.
It keeps on giving. Yeah. It's a pain in the ass.
Yeah. It's a pain in the ass. Sounds like it would be some fun merch or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's my official title with the foundation. It's a pain in the ass.
There's like some kind of headline there that would like make a great headline for something.
Yeah, the opportunities will never stop presenting themselves to use the name. I think the fact that we locked it in is pretty great.
Can I ask a couple of questions?
Yeah.
So it sounds like this is a brand new status. In other words, that you guys just found out.
Yeah, yesterday the IRS finally gave us our approval.
So, I think I'll connect with you guys in it so that you have my phone number. But I think I would definitely want to. I think there's some time, talent, and treasure that I might be able to lend just in terms of different things that we can do to, I mean, now that you're official, then it's, appropriate to build out the social media, the graphic design, a website, all of those kinds of things. And
right, but also it's just interesting that we happen to be talking to you at the same time as talking about the status. But part of being a 501c3 is you can't do political stuff, and so
it's because you followed me. I mean, the thing is a lot of people don't understand the power of following, because Scott had followed me, I think at the beginning of the senatorial campaign. I'm pretty sure of it. And so whenever Scott had something that was online, it would pop up in my feed, so I would see it. And it's not like Scott and I are having tea at the Bodhi tree on Melrose every afternoon or something like that. But the thing is that at least I was able to kind of have a bird's eye view of what Scott was doing today, if that makes any sense to you.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's my strategy. That's the entire reason that I purposely try to follow everyone who retweets anything about basic income, because I feel that they're at least interested enough in the topic to amplify. And so I hope that people follow me back who have expressed an interest in basic income, and in doing so, they're able to see more, pop up in their feed, have the greater ability to amplify more stuff, and build up a network. Like, I encourage everyone to do that. I think it's just valuable to build out the UBI network on Twitter and everything else, like to be able to cross-pollinate, to make sure those connections are there, so that you're at least able to amplify each other and follow each other. I think it's very valuable.
I've always been quite impressed too. It just, like, I don't know if people sometimes people have a big following for whatever reason, of something went viral or they're already famous, but Scott is the grindiest grinder I've ever seen. I mean, it's that head against the wall thing. It's like he constructed his 100-something thousand followers out of like relentless. He's just working at it every single day, following people, engaging with people. He built that community by sharing his time over many, many years diligently. And then I remember we were working on projects at the beginning. It's like, I'm sort of a go in the basement and build something for a bunch of years and then just try to release it. I could never have the just like the patience and the discipline to do what Scott did, and it is crucial. Like he does sort of help coalesce a lot of people around sets of ideas and understandings in UBI, and kind of brings people together. So,
and it's a good example too of how important like different approaches are to work together. It's like there's not just one approach to building a movement. A movement is a movement because of just so many different people in it going about it in so many different ways. And the person who is in their basement building something, with incredible potential, if they release it and they only have a reach of 5 people, then it's not going to be discovered. But if you've got the people out there who are really trying to build out the network to propagate stuff, then when something happens, we're able to reach all those people. And then of course the people themselves, there's just so many different ways to get messages out there. Like, sure, I'm on social media and doing this for hours a day, taking that particular technique, but then we also need the people who are like, someone who's making a great like video on a weekly basis, and building up a base of followers on YouTube, or someone on TikTok, and someone who's connections on the ground. And I mean, there's just so many things that all need to work together.
Well, that's what
for this to
That's
happen.
when the magic happens, is when a true grassroots thing starts to develop, and that's kind of why we're building Comingle too. It's like a home for the UBI movement to go and grow, and support for everybody to bring their own unique talents in a way that no top-down individual organization can manage. The best we can do is try to connect and empower as many people as possible, and then let what comes of it come of it. And the people who want to sort of control where the movement's going are always going to be overwhelmed by the size of the task. But the people who like that, our general attitude about Comingle and Bootstraps is building tools and then letting people run with it, like trying to make tools that are as useful as possible to as many people as possible to enhance their work, and we can then just step out of the way. That's sort of the whole premise and model of UBI itself. Is we as a society, as humankind, are infinitely more intelligent and powerful and creative and inspired than any one person, whether it's like some sort of genius or something. There's no one person who's can hold a candle to 100 people all kind of working together, engaged in interacting and motivated, and also free to pursue the work that they want to give, rather than I got to get back to my job. So that's the kind of movement we're trying to help create the space for.
Yeah, and it really is, like, I'm very, very excited about the development of Comingle. Make sure that that's done as a tool out there to utilize in regards to actually, like, making it happen immediately, and making sure that people really experience it for themselves, and because that's just something that we've learned even over all of our time advocating for basic income and just talking about it, is we try so hard to educate and inform the conversation, and like you said, beating our heads against the wall. And I think that to have a mechanism out there where people can really just experience it for themselves will just do so much for furthering like the understanding in like in a mass way, not just like a one at a time kind of way, but in every single member of Comingle, I think will have a real intrinsically understood kind of to their bones understanding of what it means to actually have a basic income floor, and the understanding that Bill Gates will be a net payer, which is just something that we have to explain over and over again.
So the mechanism is something that hangs people up. They don't get like that it's largely redistributive, or there's choices you can make about how to fund it. But also they get caught up in the fact that it's money, and they lose track of the fact that it's people. It's people supporting people. And a big part of what we're going to have to do with Comingle is develop all the ways which we let people know that they're connected to people, rather than plug it into some app that equals money. It's not a slot machine or whatever. It really is a community where a bunch of people have gotten together and said, okay, we want to make sure everyone's at a baseline level safe. We want to be in some sort of setup where everyone has each other's back, because that feels good. And so that is the thing that we also want to have in people's bones, is that we really are connected, and we really can support each other in a way where we create a rising tide rather than a zero-sum sort of a situation.
I'd like to jump in and just touch base on the pivot that Nina Turner has made as of late, because I think there's a lesson there, because she's pivoted from working with candidates to working with issues. And I correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, but I believe that UBI is one of those issues. So did you want to confirm?
A big supporter UBI, and I sort of take credit for that. It was like in 2016 or 17,
Good.
I introduced her to the idea at some conference, and then I hounded her a few times, and then she started talking about it. And I'm sure she mostly was the research she did, but I'm still very proud of myself for like tracking her down and saying you should look at this, and then she did. And,
yeah, I
And
noticed she's been tweeting more about it recently, and sharing it elsewhere
yes,
too. Not like not all the time, but certainly more often than she was. So
it's
it's great
because
to
of the
see her
pivot.
doing that.
It's because of the pivot. So I was surprised because I thought that what she was going to do, I assumed that she was going to come on as Marianne's campaign manager, and that's not what she did. And other people thought that she was going to run for Congress again. And again, that's not what she did. And so she started, I believe it's called Hello Somebody Foundation, or I'm not, again, it's Nina Turner, but she's created this organization where she's promoting UBI and other, I'm going to call them essential platforms. But the thing is that obviously we're talking about, in the case of UBI, we're talking about something that's comparable to a social safety net. But I think it's not just a safety net; it's a springboard. And to tie it back to Nina and to Marianne, and I want to say, who's the guy who started the People's Party? I'm not sure what's happening with that.
I feel it was Nick.
Yeah, Nick, and and I'm going to say this. I really stepped out and tried to support that process, but there really wasn't any feedback from. I was surprised there wasn't more of an effort on his part to network with me, but that's how things go. But the thing is that the reason that I know about UBI is because of the work that you were doing with Nina, the work that you were doing with Andrew, the work that you were doing with Marianne. That's how I ended up getting into the loop.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it. I mean, because if you go through my campaign videos, you'll see that little UBI card. It's a flash card, but it's there. It would never have been there without the networking that you had done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's so important to reach out to. I think especially to activate existing networks, and so it's a different thing to try to create something from scratch, and that's much more challenging. So that Conrad and I are doing that with ITSA in regards to like the official organization starting from scratch, but of course we're not actually starting from scratch because of our existing networks. But when it comes to like, let's say the like a very like the AFL-CIO kind of organization deciding to start pushing for basic income, like that's to activate a large existing organization like that would have profound impacts as far as activating other organizations too. And that's even like part of what we want to do at ITSA is to like get existing nonprofits to kind of do what Miracle Messages did recently, where this existing nonprofit focused on homelessness said, let's just try getting money unconditionally to the homeless and see if that is highly impactful. And it was, to the point where the CEO of Miracle Messages was like, this is something that more nonprofits need to do. Like this, if you want to meet the mission of your nonprofit, then for a lot of them, they really should be just getting money to people. So it's about getting all of these existing organizations and nonprofits and even corporations to see this and then start doing it, and that's how you really gets things moving.
You said starting from scratch too, and it made me think back to when we were starting back in 2016, and we just decided we want to do a movie about about UBI, and then we were developing the idea. And it's like, first we need to just learn what the hell there is to know and come up with a plan. And we had this like 6-month research phase that we ended up doing. But coming into the movement, what I'm getting at is it needs to be inviting, and there need to be the connectors. And there's some really strong connectors I know, like Stacy at Income Movement. Our connector who got us on the ground running, even though we had no money or anything. We took out balance transfers and bought a shitty old car, started driving around the country, interviewing a lot of people and experts in all walks of life. But the person who responded to our call from when we reached out to the BN network was Carl, who's listening in here. Carl Weiderquist, where I always say follow us up top, but you should follow him too if you're interested in this stuff.
He's got a new book out.
He's
too,
got a new
everybody.
book out. He connected us with like 50 people. He was very giving of his time and energy to these people he'd never heard of. We just had an interest in the idea. He made space and welcomed us in, and that was our entire Rolodex for like a whole year. It was just like a giant blessing on the table that allowed us to, we did a trip all up and down the West Coast and interviewed like 30 people in 2 weeks. Probably logistically saved us months and tens of thousands of dollars to not have to figure all that out on our own. So that's another role that's really important in the movement, is those willing to, not be the face of something, but just, empower others and get them looped in and give of their time.
Yeah, for sure. Like Stacy is doing great stuff over at Income Movement. That's definitely another account I suggest following and subscribing to them to make sure you're looped in.
I was talking to about 100 members of this Hazara genocide movement yesterday, and I said to them, I said, look, just because I know a lot of them from working with them in the last couple of years. And I said, guys, you need to be following each other. And, there was a guy in the room who had 1,500 followers, but I've seen him over the last couple of years. I just said to everybody, look, sure, my account is a political account, okay, which is why, it's blank there. But there's no excuse for you guys. Follow each other. Because the thing is that we can build a network. And there was one lady in the group, and Scott, you're going to love this. And, a couple of years ago, she had absolutely nobody. I mean, this is nobody following her. It was like 100 or something like that. But she was such a lovely person. And I said to her, I said, you just need to be, don't come into my space. Claim your own power. Start doing this yourself. Well, yesterday when I looked at her profile, she had 45,000 people following her. And so the thing is that there's no reason why this idea can't be amplified and re-amplified and amplified. And again, I want to highlight and underscore my personal story with this specific topic. I really would not have known about it unless Scott was networking with a number of people. So think about it like this. Andrew is probably never going to run for office again. Nina probably won't run for office again. This is Marianne's last political race. So, but yet the topic still continues to dwell in those of us that were brought into this loop because of what Scott and others have done. Does that make any sense to you guys?
Oh yeah, no, that's the way things work, and I hope people take from that the thing to do is to just purposely, you don't have to do what I'm doing. I just spend hours a day at this, but if you just want to do a little bit, again, this is drip kind of thing, is just just tweet something or share something on social media. You just try to do it once a day, at least once a week, just try something that's some regularity that works for you and your schedule, and interact a bit. Just try to amplify someone else who said something positive about basic income, and follow them. My strategy, part of what I do, I love it when a basic income tweet goes viral, or at least is heavily shared, because if something is shared 1,000 times, then it clearly that resonated in some way. So that's good to just kind of store away, file away, and recognize that did something, reached something. But also, it's so easy. You can just click on see who retweeted it, and if you're not following them, follow them. I have greater ability, so you do have follow limits, especially when there's a tweet with like 1,000 retweets. But you can be a little bit choosy, at least not follow like everybody, but follow at least some. And I mean, that's how you expand the network. It's really just one thing at a time, and just trying to make a point of these little things. And if that little thing is just retweeting something, then that's something. And if it's just following somebody, that's something. But just a little bit of work, here and there on a regular basis will grow.
It also goes back to that, empowering others and giving what you can and getting out of the way, sort of the deeper truth of UBI philosophy in general, which is, what's that? There's an old quote. I think it might have been some president, but it's amazing what you can accomplish if you don't care who gets the credit.
Yeah.
And along the years, people would find out. Someone would say, like, someone wanted to do a documentary, or someone wanted to run a pilot, and so I was doing these things that, and me and Dea were doing this long before people were doing it. And so we would get connected to people who wanted to ask. And it was like, most of the time it was someone who wanted it to be their thing, right? And my question was, well, what are you doing that's different? What are you adding other than muddying the waters? Why is your pilot different? Why is your documentary different? And often it was like, we've got a 5-year head start on you, and I don't know if you understand exactly how hard it is to make a documentary. You lose a decade of your life. Why does it find a way to support, or if you're going to do something big, make sure you're doing something big and new. But when I was doing all my writing, I wrote a ton of articles, but I only ever wrote something that I felt wasn't being said and needed to be said. And I always checked, Scott's backlog first. And I was like, did Scott already write about this? Because then why am I doing it? He probably wrote it better, and he had, 30,000 more views. All these things about, just be a writer by writing something every day. Just make new content. I never really bought into that. It's like, if you have something to add and something you really feel needs to be said, then say it. But I always was happy that Scott was someone taking the role of saying all these really important things and writing it really well. And I would much rather just share something he wrote than feel like I got to write this thing, because then I'll spend 3 weeks, agonizing over how do I write this.
Right.
And it's like, for me personally, if I can tell myself at the end of the day, even if no one else knows, if we get to a UBI and I can tell myself I had a fraction of a % of an influence on helping make that happen, then that's a lifetime success. It's like, we're talking about the sort of fundamental change in human history that helps billions and billions of people over the long term. And even if nobody knows you did anything, being part of supporting, sharing, tweeting, uplifting, whatever, being part of that means you're part of the better future for humankind. And what could be better than that?
Well, sorry for jumping in, Scott, but one of the things that I am clearly seeing as I'm moving into this next election cycle is that the new lesson that I've learned is that it needs to be about the issues and not about my person or other people's personalities. So
I think politics works that better in general. Like, I wish politics was more focused on the issues. Like we've gotten way too far away from that.
I don't know what to say. I guess I'm becoming enlightened from a political perspective. But the thing is that so I'm definitely segueing from that I-centric mode to the we-centric mode, to actually a kind of egoless mode, where it's really about, okay, what if I lose in 24? What if I lose in 26? What if there's no way I can actually mount a full-throated campaign for president in 28? Well, here's the what if. The what if is that I've still been promoting. I'm going to pick on UBI because the thing is, it's one of my flashcards. At least I know that I'm standing behind issues that when I look in the mirror, I can look myself eye to eye and say, hey, you know what? What I'm doing is positive.
Yeah.
This is positive. You can't say in any way, shape. I can't say to myself when I look in the mirror that promoting the Department of Peace is, I remember when I first started working with the Department of Peace, and I really resonated with it. I really connected with it. I wasn't. Well, I knew why, but it didn't seem pressing at the moment. Well, today, as we have literally a civil war on our border, we have Ukraine, we have Israel, and of course, approximately 40 other conflict zones. I'm looking at my website, going, wait a second, I got it right the first time on this. The UBI thing for me was really kind of a 0 to 60 kind of moment, because when the idea came on my radar screen, the truth was I had never heard of it before. But these ideas, all these different concepts, like Harvey K's been promoting this whole idea of resurrecting the FDR's Economic Bill of Rights. I mean, to me, it's a fairly new idea. So the thing is that we assume everybody knows everything that we know, but that's just not the case. Not everyone knows everything that Scott or UBI or Comingle. Forgive me because I don't know your names, but the thing is that we have to move from the candidate or the person to the idea, because it's the idea that certainly will outlive our political careers. Again, just think of this, just 2 or 3 election cycles, we really don't have Andrew anymore. We really don't have Nina anymore. And this is Marianne's swan song. But the idea, we can still move forward with the idea.
Yeah, there's always going to be new people, and I hope that those new people reach the same conclusions that you're just talking about, where, like, our politics would be so much better if we just focused on the issues, and that's just not, like, on the candidate side, that's true, and it's also true on the voter side, where voters should be determining who they vote for based on the issues. But unfortunately, what happens is, someone will not know something about an issue. Let's say they hear the word basic income and they have no idea what it means. Well, so the natural inclination in the current environment is to say, okay, who's someone I respect and what is their view on this issue? And if there's someone, with political power, or someone with a very large voice, with a large podcast or something. But if they have a certain strong political leaning, then you can just immediately dislike the idea without knowing anything about it, and you'll just have this firm, that's a bad idea, without looking into it at all, because you're just going off of this person and what they said, instead of actually figuring out, what is this actual policy. It's funny where, you'll see this in surveys where you'll ask about something and you'll describe it in a very neutral way. Like, I think this is like Obamacare. You describe it as the American, what is it? The Healthcare Act, was AHCA, And you have that like boring title that no one uses, and you describe it in a very nonpartisan way, and people are like, "Oh, that sounds like a great idea." And then you can do it the same way and call it Obamacare, and they'll hate it just because Obama's name attached to it. They hate Obama. So we as a country need to get away from this polarized person first kind of thinking, and really just be, all right, well, tell me what you want to make happen. What's the legislation that you would do? And that's certainly how to get actual legislation done, instead of like what we have right now, where you just vote for someone because they're essentially just loud and obnoxious, and then they get into office and they just focus on being loud and obnoxious because that's how they fundraise. And there's just no bills that they're even proposing because they don't care. They have no policy stances. They're just out there to just raise money and be known by people.
Yeah, it's a very like the more you look at it, it's just a very human. Politics is just like as frail as any person is, and like I really think that it's something that needs to be automated. Like there's no reason why it shouldn't, except that it freaks us out. Like the ability to like the things that we require of a government are not things that a person is particularly good or bad at. Like a computer is really good at the stuff that we need a government for.
Yeah,
look for that in the coming decades.
The ego and money in politics just kind of ruins the whole thing.
Right.
The people you want to be running for politics are never the ones running because they don't have the stomach for it, and the people running are often looking to elevate their own personal status, and so they'll just say whatever is going to get them in position. They don't really stand on principles or a spirit of public service, and it's just a really inefficient system of getting the right people to govern. And it's sort of sometimes people say, well, why don't we just have people involuntarily shuffled through the rolls like a raffle or something like that. And I definitely have my concerns about that.
My vision of the future of politics is that you've got somebody like a figurehead, like a queen. We vote for our president because it's fun and we all get to like talk about them, and they become like the source of our gossip and everything. But the actual work is being done by machines and things that are much better at it.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that like representative democracy itself, you needed to have representatives where they were able to travel to DC in our case, and pass legislation. It was you couldn't just everyone go there. You couldn't like do this stuff by mail, really. Like this was something that just required that mechanism, and it was brilliant at the time. But we certainly don't need anymore to have representatives. We can actually just vote ourselves, and of course, that's even more important to have a good information sphere because you want a well-informed public. And that's kind of the scary notion where we're at right now, where it's like we've got this kind of old way of doing things that is actually somewhat, I don't know, in ways somewhat protective, and in ways somewhat making it dangerous. But then at the same time, you've got this like just this information sphere where it's just it's so full of just complete falsehoods and misinformation, and just
the voters are already at the mercy of algorithms.
Right.
They're processing their thoughts through the social media they're using. Like it's already like there's a virus in our political system right now in the form of like information, false information going out to the voters. Like if every person was perfectly well educated, had all the information they needed, knew about the issues as they actually are instead of how they're spoken about, like you would have a much then we'd have a system that works. But it actually it's just succumbs to all of these other forces that really don't have much to do with real policies, like they're saying.
one of the things that I'm noticing, and it'd be interesting to see what all of you are noticing. This room is a very peaceful room, by the way. Have you noticed? It's a very peaceful room. The dialogue, the conversation, the interaction is peaceful. And right now, as things are ramping up to the 2024 election, things have become hyper-polarized and micro-polarized in the sense that we've got the RFKJ people, we've got the Marianne people, we've got the Trump people, we've got the Cornell people. I mean, and each of these groups, and the Hill people, right? And what's so amazing is that even the groups that have common ground are just, wow. I mean, it's very painful to even rub elbows. And so the thing is that, you know, I think the difference here is that we're focusing on a topic, and a topic that I think at this point, because of Andrew Yang's candidacy, is very much common knowledge. It's part of the common dialogue in the United States. People know what UBI is, or at least they've heard of it.
Yeah,
so
they may have heard of it. Yeah. Yeah, that's on the one hand, it's good that there's at least like name recognition, but and then on the other hand, it's I don't know, I don't know if I would describe it as unhelpful, but there's certainly ways that there's ways to fill a vacuum, you know. And so if you just have a title of something and you've heard of it, then other people can fill in what it actually means. And I feel that's what I'm witnessing right now with all the disinformation and stuff, and the rise of the conspiracy community, with just like filling in all these holes and gaps with just garbage. And so there's definitely a need to not only get the name out there, but like to really get people to just actually understand the truth of it, and in a cross-partisan way, which is the other part of this. It's a challenge. So it was great that Yang ran on this, and because he was running in a primary, then it made it more possible to get conservatives on board, because you know, there's less us versus them in a primary, and then of course things kind of change in the general. But I really want to see more Republicans take up this issue as well, and make it theirs. Run on it in red states, run on it in rural areas, and you know, just describe it just as, you know, the only place has it is Alaska. So, you know, use the language of Alaska. Talk about it in terms of freedom and liberty, and talk about it in terms of you know, rightful dividend. It's not welfare. But it needs to be cross-partisan, and that's always one of the reasons why I've so embraced it. Is it's not just a good idea, but it is something that everyone can talk about and support, because with its history, it's had a cross-partisan collection of supporters.
At the same time, I'm sort of exhausted by the political side. I always thought of it in terms of the politics, and I was following Yang and Big Supporter and all of that stuff, and I generally appreciate when politicians step out. But it's very freeing for me personally to be working on a project where the whole purpose is not just bipartisan. It's non-political entirely. It's private. It's private. Yeah. It's like we're doing the hedge, you know, and it's a foundation, Comingle, bootstraps. None of it is like, you know, vote for this person. It's let's build something together. You know, this is completely extra governmental. And, you know, this is another thing we can do as part of the movement to add to the overall movement. And I'm very appreciative of politicians and people pushing in that direction. It's just, I'm grateful to have my focus elsewhere.
Yeah, it's important to really recognize the different ways of going about it, the different messaging potential that's outside of politics, for sure. Kind of reminds me, we talked about this I don't know, like a couple months ago maybe, but I think it was think it was in Denver, where there was like a baby clothing company that decided to like basically do its own little pilot of somewhere. I think it was like maybe 50 mothers, like pregnant mothers or mothers of newborns, who were basically the people who shop at their company, and they just wanted to help in the best way possible. So instead of like doing like a typical donation to charity kind of thing, like certain so many businesses do, they're just like, well, let's basically just help our own customers in the way that is most helpful, which is just getting them a stable income, for some amount of time. I think it's for like a year maybe or something. But that's a for-profit company realizing that what its customer base actually it needs is a basic income. And what if even more companies realize that, and we start seeing more of that, then there's some real messaging potential there with like actual commercials where they're advertising, where it's part of their shop at us, be our customer kind of thing, because like we are actually demonstrating that we actually trust you, like, and you should shop at us because we care about you kind of thing. And it's more of a real way than like the fake kind of way that we're so used to.
It's almost like instead of a coupon where you get a discount, we're actually going to give you the money that
right.
that you would have saved had you had to buy this thing anyway, and you can decide if you want to buy this thing or not.
Yeah, and
it's
I should mention too
a pre-coupon.
Right, it's cash too. Like I don't want to describe it as like script, because it's not script. We don't want to go back to the script area. It's really a display of trust in their customers, saying like, here's cash and you can spend it at our competitors. You can spend it anywhere you want to, but you can spend it here if you want.
Here's your customer rewards in the form of a check.
The power of trust is so huge. We had one just last night. Daya and I went out to check out we have friends that want to do trivia night at the bars, and they couldn't come, but we went to go check it out, and found out that this place, which we intend to use soon for this purpose, has like on your birthday you get a free boot of beer. It's like a beer garden sort of a place, and a boot of beer is not a small thing. And
20 ounces.
There's no. It depends on the boot. Actually, some boots are huge. I don't know how big their boots are.
Yeah,
but
they can be.
I used to be on a German soccer team where they'd pass the beer around the entire table, and like it would take forever. And if you were the one who like it splurped in your face, you had to buy the next one. And I was terrified because I was poor. But the trick there is you tilt the toe to the left or the right. You just don't have the whole.
Right.
Anyway,
just like in that movie.
The point is, the very first thing I thought, because of my training and everything, of like people are bad and the way we're raised, is wait. What's like? Do you have to buy some other stuff first, or order some food? And then I was like, God, I hope not. It's a beautiful sort of a gesture, and way smarter as a business to say, no, just show us it's your birthday and you get a free beer, and then you can walk out the door. It's fine. That's the kind of gesture and the kind of extension of trust that makes people want to stay. Like, why would they go somewhere else? They're at a place that does this for them and trusts them. That's the kind of place you want to hang out on your birthday.
Yeah, it's the kind of government that you would support too. Like that's the part where I think that's a crucial aspect of the loss of trust, even in democracy, is why would you trust a government that clearly is not displaying any trust in you? But if you have a system where the default is trust, that's just a totally different setup. It's a whole different society. It would just go through so many different systems where you're actually trusting people.
Yeah, trust given is trust earned, and it has to be a two-way street.
Yeah, well, we are out of time. We're past 2:00. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you, everyone, for coming to listen. Thanks, Michael, for being a speaker here with us today.
Yeah, I'd like to connect with you guys and see how I can lift up what you're doing with this new foundation. And so I'm not sure. I'm going to try to direct message you. Okay, Scott?
Sure.
And but I'm glad to have finally been able to connect with you, because I don't know what it is, but I've seen you do spaces, and I try to go in. It's either too late or too early or whatever. But I really do appreciate the fact that you've been so consistent.
Hey, yeah. Thanks for finally making it and making that effort. And, just thanks also for, just running on this, trying to get this out there into the rest of the world. And to everyone else here, thanks for joining us today. We're here every Wednesday from 12 p.m. Eastern to 2 p.m. Eastern. And we usually, we try to get these up on the YouTube channel. I've actually,
Comingle
there's
YouTube
been
channel, by the way.
On the Comingle, which is linked in the comment here. I don't know if we're gonna get the previous two uploaded. I've been getting errors each time I try to download.
Yeah, I was wondering what's
recordings.
going on there.
Yeah, like the one from 2 weeks ago, I downloaded it and it will only give me the first 4 minutes, and then the most recent one, it's about half of it. So sometimes I've had this error before where I just try again later and it works. So I'll keep trying, but hopefully eventually these get up there. So just so you know, that is one of the reasons why it's not like these appear like immediately afterwards, is that sometimes it's a little bit buggy or
there's a lag in our
whole production process. It's wait for Josh to put it all together and make it all beautiful. But yeah, people, you should, that's a good little wrap up thing is if you want to hear more of these, and sometimes we have really cool guests and we've got a few more coming. We have a whole backlog of them on the Comingle YouTube channel, as well as some original content that just fun little videos that are good for sharing and things. That, along with the post I put in about other ways to get involved, is good stuff to check out. And whatever, like I said before, whatever way that you want to get involved, want to bring yourself to it, we're appreciative of it. We're happy to have you in any way, shape, or form that you have to give.
Great. And just a reminder too, since we don't know about the YouTube channel and stuff, then, of course you can always retweet these spaces after the fact, so people can, listen to them right here on Twitter instead of YouTube. That's always an option. And you can always look through our older ones that way as well. It's not a little bit more of a pain, but it's still possible. So we will see you next week. And thank you all for being here.
See you later, everybody.
Bye.